I think we're good to go, John.
Let me call the meeting to order, and let's see, first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And we're going to postpone the discussion of the wetlands since Courtney is absent tonight, and we thought it would be good to have her be here right from the beginning of our discussions. But also, would anybody like to add anything to the agenda? Rose?
I just wanted to make an amendment. Under 6B, it's saying that it's a Tree City update. I would like to, from now on, say that this is going to be a tree team update, as we are no longer pursuing Tree City.
Sounds good. Anything else? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to adopt the agenda as amended.
A second? Thank you, Kendra. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Is there any additions, corrections to the minutes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, Tom? Anna seconded. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, are there any opposed? Okay. Moving on to public remarks. Is there anybody who would like to make public remarks?
You have no one left in the attendee area.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And of course, we have an opportunity at the end of the meeting for public remarks also. So we go into new business, and Derek's going to talk to us about the Pathway Master Plan. Derek, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. Leroy, can you make me a co-host? It may help if I bring up the plan. I know the commission received a cover memo and kind of a 5-year short plan, and then the actual master plan map itself. But if someone's out there in cyberspace wants to see it, sometimes that makes it easier. Just some background on the master plan. So the program actually started in about 1974. So it's, 45, 46 years old. And it's been well received in the community. It's been supported by a dedicated pathway millage. In fact, the current millage provides about $600,000 to the program annually. And again, there's over 70 miles of pathways and over 30 miles of paved shoulders in the system. So it's pretty extensive. And out of that $600,000, the big chunk of it is used for new constructions of pathways. And then we also leverage those dollars for pathway grants. We go after state grants, and the county currently has a program that we try to go after too. We've been pretty successful. And the whole goal of that really is our taxpayers pay into that county program. We want to make sure we get those dollars back into our community. So a good example of that is the boardwalk along Okemos Road. That was completely funded by the county parks and trails millage. So again, we applied for that and got funding for that. But the Pathway Master Plan is really our document that we use to determine what plans and projects we're going to do, both long-term and short-term. In your document, there should be a short-term plan for really the next 5 years. And really those first 3 years are tied up on the MSU to Lake Lansing pathway that we've been talking about probably for at least 7 or 8 years. And this year, the majority of the construction will be taking place. So there's phase 1 all the way through phase 3. Phase 3 is the last section in the northeast corner of the township that will tie into Lake Lansing, the parks itself. And we're in the planning stages of that. But phase 1 and phase 2 actually construction will probably start this summer, and phase 1 will be this fall. So that's exciting. But then in years 24 and 25, we've identified some gaps in the system that we'd like to fill in, and those are identified in that short plan. So I'll pull that out. So this is the overall pathway master plan. And when I talk about the short-term plan, it's really these that are identified with the numbers. So like 24-2 that you see up there, 24-1. What that indicates is in 2024, the first gap that we would like to close is there along Okemos Road. The second gap is up there near Lake Lansing. And a lot of these are based on our experiences and then residents contacting us trying to get these gaps closed. Again, there's several gaps throughout the system, but we feel that these are the ones that we should be focusing on next. But again, a lot of this is driven by citizen input. So that's really the purpose of this pathway plan update is to solicit that input, not only from the boards and commissions, but also our residents. So that's one of the purposes we go to these various boards and commissions, is hopefully to get different audiences at each one. Again, the way the plan will proceed is visit several of these boards and commissions. It'll go before the township board. They'll hold a public hearing, and then they'll finally adopt that. And we're looking to do that in June. But the short-term plan here on the map, those are identified. And the long-term plan is really additions to the pathway master plan. And we have about 10 of those identified. And those are the circles with the numbers, and then they're identified with the yellow. So. Hoping you can see my screen. I got to move the people around here so I can kind of go along here. But section 1 along Green Road, that would be a new addition for us. We're calling that the Green Road extension. So the MSU to Lake Lansing pathway really starts over here on the western border on Hagedorn, and it'll work its way along the Red Cedar River on the north side, cross Grand River, go through the Riesberg Land Preservation property, at Okemos Road, cross there, head north along the interurban, bring that into the downtown Hazlet. We'll cross the Marshall Bridge on the north side, back behind the businesses, and again, take you to the northeast corner of the township. And our thought is, once that's completed, it would make sense to complete this loop so that you could come back into the township along Green Road. So that's why we think it makes sense to add number 1. Number 2 happens to be, Carlton Road connector. Carlton Road's in pretty bad shape, but it's a nice connector between Hazlet Road and the paved shoulder around Lake Lansing. So we think that needs to be improved. There's going to be part of phase 3 is their Shaw Street connector that's going to be constructed this summer. So that actually will get you from Hazlet all the way up into Lake Lansing Park South. But again, there's several that we've added on here. There's one along Towner Road. There's a 4th one through the Hillbrook Park. There's Consumers Energy has a transmission line through here, and we think it makes sense to get that on the pathway master plan as far as a new north-south route on the eastern side of the township. So again, I won't go through all of these. They're available in your memo, but we think there's 10 good candidates that we should be including in the new update. And again, we try to update this every 5 years, so stuff can be added. Occasionally some things are removed. That has happened, but typically it's really our guiding principle on how we plan to proceed and spend those pathway millage dollars going forward. So again, the purpose of the night really is to present this to you and your audience and folks that have opinions or recommendations. We ask that those be sent on to us. And again, we'll present those, incorporate those into the plan, and ultimately the township board will hold a public hearing and adopt that in June. So I'm sure there's questions, and I'll be more than willing to entertain those, but that's really the purpose of the night. I know it's a lot of information real quick, but hopefully it all made sense.
Do we have any questions for Derek? We may want to stop sharing so we can kind of see everybody.
Sure.
Well, Derek, too, this is kind of a related question. I kind of assume that the pathways have been getting more traffic during the past year. Do we actually know that somehow, or do we have a sense for which trails are used more than others?
The interurban is definitely a high traffic trail. Then there's one on the south end that we call the south interurban. They're both major east-west corridors. We don't use ped counters or anything like that. We actually look level of trash. That's really our best indicator of amount of usage, not only on the pathways, but also in the park system. And we've seen a large uptick in that. So that and use of the mutt mitt bags for people walking their dogs, changing those out a lot more frequently too. So we know they're getting a lot of use.
You might also, just in case you're curious, you might also consider looking at apps like Strava that record where people do their workouts and they're running and biking. I use that app and I can see how many people have been running the same route that I'm running, over the past couple of weeks. So it's just another thing to think about if anybody cares or wants to look at that.
Yeah, that information might be beneficial when we're pursuing grants. Sometimes they're looking for, what's the usage amount on the pathways. And I know MSU has utilized some different counters, and we kind of let them be the guinea pigs on some of those things. But yeah, once they get some proven technology, we've talked about trying to do some more intricate monitoring on the pathways too.
Questions? Anybody has a question for Derek? Are you getting a lot of feedback, Derek, from different citizens and boards and commissions?
Not so much through this process. I mean, we typically get feedback on a myriad of issues, throughout the year, and we just kind of keep a file on these things. And that's really where a lot of these top 10 came from too. It's not just us sitting around a table saying, "Hey, this makes sense." It's a lot of user feedback saying, we'd really like to have a connector over here, or will you please, finally finish that gap? So, I'm tired of walking around it, that kind of thing. So, but again, we're hoping that every 5 years, if we do this and get in front of as many people as we can, we'll, improve the public, input process.
Okay, doesn't seem like.
Questions? Yeah, I'll just before.
Oh, Bill's got one.
Okay. Bill's seen this probably 10 times already, but.
And I've got my video off, mainly my internet connection is terrible, but I was just going to speak in favor of the overall strategy of kind of focusing in the short term on that Lake Lansing trail. And there was a part there where my audio cut out and I didn't quite hear what the plan there was at Marsh Road at the moment. And I'd be interested in hearing more about that, but generally love the plan and love the priorities.
Really for that phase 3, we're working with Ingham County on that, but also we're trying to work with Consumers Energy on their corridor. It's a lot easier to work with long corridors like that, one property owner versus multiple property owners and trying to secure small easements. And a lot of times that's why we have some of these gaps. It's just either we don't have the right of way to construct the path by right, so we need to secure easements with adjacent property owners. And believe it or not every property owner initially wants to have a pathway in front of their home. So sometimes those take a little time.
Go ahead, Tom.
Tom's got his hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question on the top 10. Those are, you indicated more long-term priorities, but do you have an idea on time frame when those would be completed, if you will?
We really don't. That's kind of why we break it out into the short term and the long term. So we try to figure out, okay, every time we do an update, what's our next 5 years going to look like, so we can provide a little, specificity to the public. But then long term, it's important to have those on there too, because It may be a pathway that we know the public wants. We don't plan on doing it within the first 5 years, but if a developer comes along and buys that parcel, typically one of the conditions is they have to construct that pathway. So it's important for us to have those on the map as soon as possible. So if we get that developer that comes along, we can get those gaps done without using pathway funding or other grant funding.
Okay.
Go ahead, Leroy.
I defer to Kendra initially.
Thanks, Leroy. I'm just wondering, so this is for, like, how many commissions does this go in front of, and then it goes in front of the board to make the decision, right? So this is like your best plan right now, right? This is the best plan you have forward, and then based on feedback, you might change that. Am I hearing that correctly?
Correct. Yep. So a lot of the map really is the culmination of 40 some years of these 5-year updates. As the public says, this is where we want them. And then every 5 years when we try to accomplish this, different ones are added. And then again, we try to identify the specific, what we're going to do over the next 5 years. And again, the MSU to Lake Lansing has been a huge driver in that, and will be over the next 3 years. So we typically start with the Transportation Commission, although that's new for this update because they didn't exist in the prior update. So we started with the Transportation Commission. Attended the Planning Commission. I believe they're going to make a recommendation at their next meeting. We'll be attending, of course, Land Preservation is up, I think, next week. Parks Commission. And then we'll be back to the Transportation Commission for a recommendation to the full board. Then they'll be on for discussion at the Township Board. They'll set a public hearing for the next meeting. So then we'll hold the public hearing, and then they'll do formal action. So there's a lot of opportunities. In fact, it's probably one of the most vetted plans that the township has, really, because we do try to get in front of as many boards and commissions as possible.
Go ahead, Leroy.
First of all, nice job, Derek, and I think our staff has really done a great job filling in the gaps. But I'm also just wondering, we have 3 amazing students that are on the commission, and I'm just wondering if they have any ideas of how to get some feedback. They're often on foot or on bike and might have some insights into gaps that other portions of our population might not. So I just, if you guys have ideas of how you might share this with students or get some feedback from students, that'd be interesting to make Derek's life a little more complicated.
Well, that's all right. And actually, it's a great point, Leroy. I mean, this program really started with the community saying, how do we get really the children safely from the neighborhoods to the schools and the parks? I mean, that really was the main driver of this program. There's been other outstanding benefits to it, but that really is what started it all. So, you know. And again, if anyone has comments between now and the meetings next month with the full board, feel free to email us at dpw@meridian.mi.us or give us a call, whatever's easiest for you. I see Audrey's got her hand up.
I have a question.
Sure.
I bike a lot of places, and I was actually just talking about this today. I like this behind Central that goes into Tacoma Hills. Obviously on Dobie, there's the path that goes into Tacoma Hills, but then there's not a way to get from Tacoma Hills out because you have to cross the river. Obviously, that's not really like a path. That would be like a bridge, and also definitely through people's neighborhoods and through Riverwood. But I think that would be cool, and that would take some easement for sure. That would be a lot, but I have always been like running, because I also use Strava, as Rose said, and I run like I've ran through Tacoma Hills and I've ran through Riverwood, and I used to go to school at Central, and I didn't really realize how close everything was to each other, but it's just blocked off by like a river, which is a pretty good divider of things. But I don't know, just throwing that out there. That'd be cool.
Sure. Well, anything's possible. Again, actually, sometimes it's harder to cross a railroad than it is to cross a river. In fact, the Okemos Road Bridge, that bright green, which people either love or hate, that was installed in 2015 or 16, and so it can be done. You can cross the Red Cedar. In phase 1, we're going to be crossing the Red Cedar too, but it really does boil down to having the easements or the parcels available to connect the dots. But we can definitely take a look at that one.
Very cool.
Anything else for Derek? Yeah, Annika?
I'm not sure how much you can do about things from Okemos to MSU, but I bike along between the two pretty often, and there's just a lot of lack of sidewalks going in to MSU, so I'm not sure if that's possible to be remedied.
Yeah, that really is one of the drivers of that MSU to Lake Lansing pathway. It's we have pathways along Grand River, but let's face it, they're not always the most comfortable to ride just because of the amount of traffic and the proximity to the car. So the phase 1 really would take you kind of foods for living, take you behind all of those businesses along the Red Cedar on the north side and wind you back behind all those, behind Dawn Avenue and all that, and then cross you really at Shaw Avenue. You know where the MSU Music School is? There'd be a crossing there then to get you kind of more in the middle of the campus, so you wouldn't necessarily be on Grand River. And from there, tie into the MSU pathways, and then ultimately to the City of Lansing pathways too.
Anything else?
Well,
thank you, Derek. This has been very helpful.
Sure. Well, again, I appreciate the comments and any feedback you have in the future. And again, email probably is the easiest way. And our department email is the dpw@meridian.mi.us. And if there's someone out there that wants to get an old-fashioned paper map, just send us or call us your name and address, and we'll get that sent out to you. So I know not everyone can do everything virtually, so we try to accommodate everyone the best we can. And then just before I go, I just want to tell Miss Osborne that Olivia says hi. Okay.
Super. Thanks again, Derek.
Yep.
We're moving on to the green infrastructure audit update. I guess, Leroy, I assume that would be you.
Yeah, I don't have anything more on that. That was just on the agenda in case Cliff could join us. Because we're talking about wetlands, I wanted to make sure that people were connecting those two topics. But that'll be, hopefully we'll have something next month. Does anybody else have anything related to that?
Oh, I guess not.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. We have a new student application, and Leroy's put it down, alternates discussion. Annika and Bernadette are both here tonight. And let's see, Leroy, I guess we're still just at the discussion stage, right? But last meeting, we did talk about wanting to get everybody involved who had expressed an interest. So one of the things that was discussed was having one of the candidates become an alternate. And there was some discussion too about maybe a meeting at Okemos High where the students themselves would talk about ideas of how to, participate with the Environmental Commission. Do you have anything to add, Leroy?
No, other than just we want to maximize access to any students that want to be involved. And the alternate was mentioned partly because Luca's got a pretty tough baseball schedule, but he promises to be back next month. But I like the team approach where all three of our students who've expressed interest can be student members and alternates if they can't make it. So I think the goal is just to maximize access and participation, and but I defer to the students, Bernadette, Annika, Luca, maybe Audrey, are you still a student?
Yeah, I'm in the same grade as both Annika and Bernadette. Yeah, I was kind of, because I'm a part of Earth Club, that Bernadette is also, and I've been meaning to come to these meetings, but they're just not my schedule changes all the time, and there's so many meetings at 7 on Wednesday for some reason. But yeah, but I'm excited to be here and just kind of figure out how it works.
We have a couple official student membership openings, and but there's no reason we couldn't create 2 alternate positions. Whatever we desire, I think we can create eventually. But I'll be quiet and let you guys talk.
Well, Leroy, just to clarify what you just said too, was Luca's in one of the 2 positions, right? And we do have a vacancy in the second position.
Yeah, I think we entertained Bernadette's application, and now you have Annika's application, official application. I don't see why we couldn't have 3 alternates or 2 alternates. I don't think we made an official decision on Bernadette because Annika had also spoken up with interest.
Okay, yeah. And actually, I'd like to get some input from Bernadette and Annika. What you're kind of thinking about this, or I assume obviously both of you are interested in kind of the position on the Environmental Commission, and we really appreciate your interest. And would you also be interested in an alternate role as a choice too? Bernadette, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I would definitely be. I really like the Environmental Commission so far. I like learning about like all the environmental stuff going on in Meridian.
Annika?
I like the idea of like having an alternate position as well.
Yeah, and Leroy, there's maybe this has never come up in the past. I wonder if when we say an alternate, is there any possibility of 2 students actually sharing a position? Do you think the township board would be receptive to that idea? Any idea?
I think we have some flexibility. Sometimes better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I didn't say that publicly. No, I like the idea of just maximizing participation. I also like the idea of coming up like a student group that is more than just a couple of people that are representatives and can speak more articulately about some of the township items that we are discussing.
And now
strength in numbers.
Only the township board can officially appoint somebody though, right?
I believe we appoint our student members. They don't. The student members don't have official voting rights on the commission, according to our attorney. But that doesn't mean that they can't weigh in on all the decisions that we make.
Okay.
So I see it as pretty flexible, but others may disagree. We have been talking about amending our bylaws and clarifying some of this a little bit further. So that's also in the works. And
okay, Rose, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I just kind of had a harebrained idea, and that was, I wonder if we could have a student partner committee or a student advisory board to the environmental committee. I don't know if that's getting too convoluted, but it would be, I mean, I feel like these young people are going to have some really wonderful ideas, and I want to see everybody be able to participate and have a voice. So just another thought.
I agree with Rose. I think that would be a fantastic idea. I think the more folks we can, students, community members, we can get involved in environmental initiatives. And we have a number of projects already going on. So you're welcome to join in, you know, with summer coming too. There's all kinds of things you can join in on, but it would be great to have the voices, the student voices, and what's important to them and what they're seeing and what they're noticing.
Audrey?
I was,
Anna,
No, Anna,
go
you
ahead.
can
Okay. Go ahead, Audrey.
No, Anna, you can go.
okay, I was just going to second or third that as well. And, you know, if we do have Bernadette and Annika that are interested, you know, perhaps we could bring them both on and they could help, you know, work with us to help build other student interest and, you know, an advisory group or something like that, since we, you know, have the two of them both here and engaged now.
Well, other thoughts? It seems like, oh, go ahead, Audrey.
I was just gonna ask I guess I have a few questions that, or for Earth Club right now, we've kind of run out of steam because it's kind of getting busy with AP tests and everything, but, what would a student advisory board like advise on? Like, what are topics that we could talk about at Earth Club that we could get more input from a group of students that are already currently like doing things like that? Like, what would you be looking for from a student advisory board?
That's an excellent question. And, you know, what immediately comes to my mind is you know, we certainly would like input on anything that is an issue before us. Because I think, you know, the students may have a different perspective. Like Derek was talking before about the pathway plan. And so, you know, that's one good example, but I think, you know, the students in Earth Club might have ideas related to wetlands, energy, climate change. Certainly you could be very helpful to us because one of our ongoing struggles is to deal with education and community outreach. And you may have some ideas on how we can be more effective in doing that. Other kind of thoughts related to a role of Kendra, go ahead, student advisory group.
I was just going to agree with what you were saying, particularly in relationship to the wetlands. It's literally in the code to have that students get educated on those in the school. And we could talk more about that next month. But also I was going to say, you know, these meetings are taped, so they're on home TV and on YouTube. And so, you know, if you can't make it to the meeting, you know, maybe watch it and see the topics that we're talking about. And then you guys can talk about it in your groups and then bring back feedback to us, and whatever we're missing and not noticing too would be helpful too.
Annika?
So I noticed that Hazlitt is also part of Meridian, and so would the student advisory committee also include their schools, or would it just be Oakness Earth Club?
Well, I think the answer to that is, you know, certainly we would love to have their participation, and so it would be yeah, open to anybody who would be interested in participating. We've made efforts to try to get you know, a student members from Hazlitt before, unsuccessfully, at least in recent history. So yeah, certainly it would be open. Well, you know, I think there's a consensus here. It seems that the consensus is to have both Annika and Bernadette kind of appointed by us as kind of co-members of the Environmental Commission. And also the idea being that the two of you and potentially other students too, and certainly Luca, would be kind of a student advisory group. And the student advisory group certainly could include Audrey or members of the Earth Club, students from Hazlitt. If that seems to be of, if I've got the consensus correct, I guess I would entertain a motion to that effect. Kendra?
So just, I'm sorry, I just agree with what you're saying. I make the motion to have them share the positions. Is that what you're asking for?
Yes,
And-
yes. Have
Okay.
our two candidates share the position and also, you know, look into doing a student advisory group, which would include Luca and potentially other students. Tom? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I guess I was just curious as if the two of them share the position. I mean, how does that work as far as if both of them are at, you know, the meeting at the same time? Do they each kind of officially have a role with the Environmental Commission? Because technically, I think we only have two positions. Luca filling one of those. I'm just kind of wondering how the logistics of that would work.
Yeah, well, I think Leroy kind of alluded to it. The fact that they're not voting members makes it a little cleaner. If they were voting members, that would be kind of an impossible situation just because, you know, it get too complicated. But I don't think it was ever intended that we would have co-members. But well, like Leroy said, it seems like a good idea, and probably nobody would kind of complain about it. So I think, you know, the more participation at our meetings, the better. And I think the reality is too, students can be very busy at times, and one or more may miss meetings, just like we're missing Luca tonight. So yeah, I think that's I'm guessing that it will work out fine. But
Okay.
yeah. Do I hear a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay, further discussion.
Do we maybe want to have a committee member be the point person for this student subcommittee? At least, do we want to maybe have a little meeting after this meeting to hash out some of the details and figure out roles and define things a little better, and then bring that back to our next meeting?
I think that's I think that's an excellent idea. Would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
Other further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, just raise your hand, please. Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Oh, we're down to old business and green infrastructure grants for schools. And I think both Rose and Leroy probably have some updates for us.
Rose got some good pictures of one of the projects. I'll maybe let her talk about that. We've been in communication with all the projects. We proposed 50% down, 50% upon completion, which Derek had suggested. And both of the Hazlitt Middle School and Montessori Radmore are supportive of that payment schedule. And I know school's been pretty busy, so I haven't heard of a lot of student involvement, but we're expecting some reports in the next month or so from each of the groups. Do you have anything else, Rose?
I just want to say, I live not too far away from Radmore, so I've had my eye on their progress, and it's very impressive. They've done a lot of work already, and I think it's going to be real fun this coming week. They're going to do a big planting event and have the students come out and do plantings in the greenhouse and around the pathways. So I'm hoping to get some photos of that and maybe some video to share with you and with the township board of what's happening. It's just very cool, very exciting. I'm so pleased with this project.
Yeah, I would encourage, we've talked before about at the appropriate time, having a report to the township board or kind of an update. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that could be helpful in a lot of ways. Anything else about the grants, Leroy, or?
Yeah, there's about $3,000 left in the budget, and the Okemos High School project, a kind of a reissue or additional support for these projects is possible, or other green infrastructure projects. So we still have some. We want to make sure that we're supporting the projects that we've committed to the extent that they need it. But just if there are other ideas or projects that people want this team to explore, I think we're open to that.
Okay, let's move on to the tree team update. Rose, you're on again.
Goody. Well, I did have another meeting of the minds with Luann and Derek and Jane. And what I'm finding is that when we're having these cross-departmental meetings, it's really cool how many projects we all have going simultaneously that are kind of all going in the same direction. There's a lot of overlap in what we're doing. And I think the more often we're able to meet with each other and talk about things, the stronger these projects are going to be. And one example of that is we just did this big tree giveaway this past weekend at the farmers market. I don't know, Leroy, were you planning on talking about that at some other point, or should I?
I'm happy with you because you were there on the front lines. I was out of town.
So the township was given 300 seedlings from the MSU Tree Research Center, and they were red pine seedlings, native red pines. And so we gave about 200 of those out at the farmers market. And then there are still roughly 100 divided up between Harris Nature Center and the Service Center. And I've been trying to get the word out, and I know Leroy has been trying to get the word out that anybody who would like seedlings can come and pick them up. But that was just a really cool combined effort there that we pulled off, and great response to that. So, but otherwise, as far as the tree stuff goes, I think that my next big there's two things I want to do. My next big push is to talk to whoever I ought to about the green infrastructure audit and make sure that trees are a consideration there. And then I was speaking to Kendra yesterday. We talked on the phone, and she told me that she was talking to Clerk Guthrie, and there's apparently a tree that needs saving. And I need to learn more about where that is, but somewhere in Meridian Township, I guess that there's a tree. Maybe Kendra, you can talk about that more.
She mentioned Powell Road, and I know that the Powell Road construction project, it looks like it's on the agenda tomorrow. I haven't driven down Powell Road to see where the tree is, but she said that her and I think Trustee Asser were interested in saving that tree.
All right, so I'm going to try to save the tree. Does anybody know what tree this is? I mean,
I will assist. I'll call her and ask her. I'll call her and ask her.
Okay.
I'll follow up with her.
All right, cool. Well, we'll talk then. And that is all for trees.
Okay, thank you, Rose. We're up to chair's report. Leroy forwarded to you a note from me about the fact that the Citizens Climate Commitment has been approved by the Township Board on April 20th, and communication staff very quickly kind of put together the web page, which includes the background information and the actual citizen climate commitment form, where people can kind of make a commitment to kind of look at electric alternatives to equipment that uses natural gas and gasoline. So I'd like to encourage everybody here to kind of check that out and to sign up. And you don't have, at this point, if you haven't actually made a decision about switching from to electric vehicles, you don't have to actually put anything down. You could just indicate that you're making a commitment to in the future consider electric alternatives. If you have made a decision though about furnaces or heat, or lawnmowers or whatever, it's probably good information for us to have for you to click those boxes. So again, I'd like to encourage you all to check it out and tell your friends. I would really love to have hundreds, if not thousands, of township residents to go to the webpage and make the commitment. I think it would say something about our community. And I guess that's all from for the chair's report, which leads us up to Leroy, staff report.
Yeah, just briefly, a few projects I've been working on. Been out of town for the last week in Northampton, Massachusetts, but I really appreciated the work of the green team, Rose and Ellen and Elaine for staffing the table at the market, which incidentally might be an ongoing opportunity for participation. If any of you students or Environmental Commission members would be interested in helping staff an information table. Ellen's calling it the green resources because it includes parks and public works and the nature center, possibly even Ingham Conservation District and other partners that trying to get information, and this past weekend trees out. So think about that if you've got some ideas for what would draw people to an information table, or what would be good information to give out. And the market staff have been real supportive of that and provided table and chairs, and it's kind of a festive opportunity. We are working on a bike recycling event at the market on May 22nd, and we're hoping to staff that table either this coming Saturday or the following Saturday to promote that bike recycling and bike repair workshop that Tim Potter will be assisting with from MSU Bikes. There's a bike repair station there at the market, which some of you might have seen. So that's sort of an ideal place to do a little bike workshop. We're looking at the recycling center improvements and possibly talking with Granger about another recycling location. So that's in the works. There's some grant money available for that. If you've got thoughts on that, I'd be interested in your feedback. We're also doing a community survey, and we're hoping to have a question related to recycling and or other environmental issues on that community survey. So if you've got ideas for questions for that community-wide survey, please send them along to Derek or I. We might have an opportunity to add 1 or 2 questions. There's some hot issues in the township right now, but this is a great opportunity to get some feedback from residents on things that are important to us. The Green Dialogues continue on Wednesday morning, and that's always, some of you are involved with that. If any of you that are involved would like to comment on some of the things that are being discussed, I invite you to do that. But it's usually a kind of a fertile opportunity to learn about things like ponds and ecological landscaping, dog poop, and other juicy matters. I encourage you to tune in. And you might even get a chance to hear John Esser's dog poop jingle again, or maybe his next jingle that he's developing. The dialogue format is kind of cool because it's unlike a traditional meeting with an agenda. People can talk about whatever they're interested in. So that usually brings up some interesting topics. The big energy system is going to be installed at the service center starting in July, maybe completed in August. So that's coming up. And what else? We've got a big recycling event later in the summer, and we're trying to, I need to send out some sponsorship requests for that, because that event costs over $10,000 to pull off. And so far we've got Delta Dental and Granger that have committed. The township is committed, but we need about 100 volunteers and about $10,000 to make that happen. So if you'd like to be involved, consider joining our green team. And I guess I would invite Tom to add anything about the green team, which typically oversees recycling events. Tom's involved with that. And Tom, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, Really, nothing much to add at this point. I think you've kind of covered it. One of the things that you and the team has been working on is a flyer for that September event. And I think we're kind of zeroing in on getting that finalized or close to that. But so hopefully that will be available soon. But other than that, I don't think there's too much else to relay. So
Our next meeting is tomorrow at 5 o'clock on Zoom. If any of you would like to get involved with the Green Team or the Green Resources table, feel free. I can send you the link, or Tom can send you the link. So I think those are the things that really are on the front of my agenda. So thanks, John.
Well, thanks, Leroy. You know, this morning during the Green Dialogue, you know, I had this thought that, you know, there's another community that kind of was trying to deal with environmental issues, and they were wondering how to get started. I guess I would recommend that they do two things initially. One is to try to establish an environmental commission or committee that would have kind of a more formal role, but also to do like the Green Dialogue that we have every Wednesday morning, because I think that like you say, Leroy, provides a more informal way for people to have input and participate, and is open-ended. Of course, any number of people can participate. So I think, of course, the township has done a lot in the environment, but the Environmental Commission and then the Green Dialogues, I think, really are very helpful, identifying issues and sorting out things. Well, I learned a lot during these meetings, and also Wednesday mornings at the Green Dialogue. So it's all for the good. And we're moving on to the different study groups and Transportation Commission. I think that's you, Bill.
Yeah, thanks. The main item that Transportation Commission has been working on recently is this Township Pathway Master Plan, which we heard a presentation from earlier. And that's the report from there. Moving to Planning Commission, the Planning Commission last met April 26th and has recently been looking at a couple of rezoning applications and a special use permit. The rezoning, one is a couple of parcels along Grand River Avenue, where you may recall there was a proposed car dealership that is no longer being pursued, and another project is being sought there. So they're looking for a change of zoning from commercial to a residential to allow that to go forward. Another residential rezoning up in the area of Sir Hall Drive behind the Gables Shopping Plaza, and a special use permit for a drive-through car wash at the former Paul Revere's restaurant there on Grand River at dawn. Happy to answer any questions, but those are the main things on the docket of the Planning Commission.
Any questions for Bill? Okay, let's see. Moving along, we've got hey, Tom, I know you've retired from the Township Association, but do you have any reports for us about legislation or other things going on at the Capitol? And you're probably still keeping track of things.
A little bit, not as much as I used to, obviously, but I think last meeting I mentioned that there was some legislation moving forward on the rewrite of Part 115, which is the state solid waste law. And the focus of that is really to encourage more recycling and composting instead of landfilling. Since our last meeting, that package did pass the House of Representatives towards the end of April and has now moved on to the Senate. I'm not sure exactly what will happen now that it's in the Senate. Unfortunately, it went to a committee that's probably less favorable than the committee we anticipated the legislation would go to, but time will tell. So that, I guess, is really the only update I'd have at this point, that it has made it through one more step and is now before Senate committee. So.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
And we're up to the Land Preservation Advisory Board. Kendra.
All righty. So Land Preservation met on April 14th, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the great work that Emma Campbell is doing as the Land Stewardship Coordinator. To begin with, she has had an opportunity to hire an intern, Rebecca Fisher, to help her out with implement her many stewardship programs. And for Earth Month, provided a lot of educational opportunities and, opportunities for folks to get involved in helping conserve our land. So let me just talk a little about that. So one thing Emma did, is she did an interview on the wetlands. And though that is on home TV. And so it's just a few minute video, and I think it might be a nice little video for everyone to watch before we have that conversation next month, but also just to educate the community on the importance of protecting the wetlands and what they offer us. And I'll get into that a little bit more next month. Other programs, the Vernal Pool Patrol program was launched in April, and 24 volunteers are monitoring vernal pools in the township, collecting data to conserve our smallest wetlands and forward more protection in those areas in the future. And that's just in our township, but that vernal pool training was throughout Michigan. And I was on that training, and there was over 100 people on that training, and it was fantastic. In fact, some of my friends' parents were some of the folks that took photos that were displayed, and along with lots of our residents in this area. It's a great program in, protecting our precious ecosystem, but also teaching you about wetlands and, trees that are in wetlands and, all kinds of how important that ecosystem is to protect and why it is so important to protect. So Emma's very busy. I don't know if you get her Conservation Corps emails, but she's managing over 200 volunteers and 250 volunteer hours of it were completed in April. To removing invasive species, along with 205 native trees were planted at Tower Woods Preserve of 8 different species, including river birch, bur oak, swamp oak, white oak, tulip, sycamore, and sugar maple. So, she's doing a combination of removing the invasives, but also planting natives, along with 500 pounds of Dane's rocket was removed, and garlic mustard. So along with a bunch of trash removed from some preserves, including couches, mattresses, car parts, and 20 tires. So I think it's really important to understand that these places are also receiving, people are polluting them. So again, that's why it's going to be really important for us to do some community education and protecting them. And then also at the meeting, we discussed, the community support for the controlled burns, but needing to improve protocols and communication, updating signage and renaming some preserves, but no decisions have been made. So that's it. And I'm just going to say I'm very impressed and appreciative to be part of land preservation and all the wonderfully just fantastic opportunities there are for everyone in the community to learn.
Thank you, Kendra. And that brings us up to the green team. Leroy or Tom, anything to add?
No, I think we covered it. I skipped ahead. But
Okay.
Tom, did you have anything, Tom?
No, I think we did cover it, so we should be good.
Thank you. Okay, anything, Rose, with environmental justice?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. Well, first of all, I think Leroy sent this information out to everybody on our committee, but Eagle is sponsoring the Michigan Environmental Justice Conference that's happening May 18th to 20th. And it's an online event, and there's all sorts of topics and speakers. And it looks like it's going to be cool. I just wrote down a few of the things they're talking about. future of infrastructure, tribal perspective, public engagement, climate and equity, and there's a bunch of other topics. So I would encourage everybody to just take a look at, I can post a link to the sign up. Just take a look, because maybe you'd like to sit in just on 1 or 2 talks, and it's free. So check it out. I think it would be an important thing to check out. Otherwise, April was Fair Housing Month. And so through my work as a realtor, I took some online education about housing equity. I do think that there's a lot of inherent environmental justice issues wrapped up in housing. And you know, the buying and the renting process, especially right now. And one thing that the association has been pushing for is for realtors to not include love letters with our offers anymore. So up until this point, our buyers have been able to write a letter about themselves. When you're submitting your offer, sometimes it helps to tell the seller a little bit about who you are, about your family, those sorts of things. But that opens things up for discrimination, right? Because a potential seller will maybe think, well, I only want to sell to a family, or I only want to sell to somebody who's going to love this house. So long story short, we are not doing love letters anymore in order to prevent discrimination. So that's a big step for our local association. And other than that, I think it would be good for us to have a little subcommittee meeting. I know that Kendra's interested in environmental justice. So I think that just getting together with Kendra and Courtney sometime in this coming month and talking about priorities would be a good thing. Did you have a question?
Rose, I was just going to say, I'm also interested. If you could include me as well, that would be great.
Okay. Sure.
Great. Okay, I don't have anything additional to add from the energy team, which takes us to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, but that's not on tonight, so I don't think we have a report for that. And Board of Trustees, I don't know, Courtney's not here, but Phil's here. Phil, would you like to give us an update?
Sure, I'd be glad to. First of all, I want to thank you all for the good work you're doing and continue to do on the Environmental Commission. I haven't been able to attend many of your recent meetings, but hearing the subcommittees and the other activities going on, it's clear that the committee is fully engaged in these important activities. The Township Board has some rezoning before it, as is very typical. The biggest one now is the rezoning of the what will be car dealership rezoning that we'll be discussing at tomorrow night's meeting. Nothing extraordinary. The board really have put off discussion of recreational marijuana. It will be coming back before the board, and it's one of those issues that it's a rare issue, and that the board is pretty split on that issue. But speaking of the board and hearing Rose's tree committee, the board, as you know, gave the grant that funded the big Chippewa tree project last year, and that was a big hit for the schools, for the.
Oh, we lost Phil. There, he's back. Phil, we lost you for a minute.
All right. Am I back?
We're not hearing you. Go ahead.
Let me try again. What I wanted to wrap up with is that I sense the board would be open to another request for another fall tree project should the Environmental Commission want to sponsor that again.
Thank you for bringing that up. We have had some discussions about that in the past, and we've been to some poking around in Hazlet, but we don't have anything solid yet, but we are kind of, we haven't forgotten about it, and we are kind of looking for an opportunity, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, and Leroy, you're not aware of anything that's come up, right, about the Hazlet and trees?
No, no.
Okay.
I know Ned Jackson's been putting some feelers out to the Hazlet beautification team, but that's all I recall.
Okay. Okay. Hey, thank you, Phil. Anything else, Phil?
This lastly, I was part of the Conservation Corps effort at Tower Woods on Saturday, which planted the 208 trees. Extraordinary day, and the way that those woods have been brought back the past 10 years is.
Oh, lost him again. He's back. Yeah, we lost you for a minute, Phil.
Treasurer DeShane, it looks like you're having some problems with your upstream bandwidth. You may want to keep your video off for the time being.
Yeah, Phil, did you want to say anything further?
I'll just add that the Tower Woods efforts are extraordinary, and we've really brought back those woods, and due to the many hundreds and thousands of volunteer hours that have been contributed over the past 10 years to create a really wonderful land preservation. Thank you all very much.
Hey, thank you, Phil. We're up to public comment again. So does anybody want to make a comment? And that could be anybody on the Environmental Commission too, who has further thoughts. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing that I did earlier in the Green Dialogue meeting, just reminding people that, or telling people for the first time, that on the 19th at 9 o'clock for the Green Dialogue meeting, that Alexa Hexel will be making a little presentation about her new business called the Clean Refillery. And I was just going to read here real quickly. It's a low waste refill shop for daily home and self-care needs, replaces the need for single-use containers. And it's a small store. Actually, I visited last week. It's a very small store over in Rio Town. And she'll talk about the products that they have, and also about the philosophy behind what she's trying to do with her little shop there. And I would encourage people to check into that, and check into the store if you got a chance to be listening during that meeting. During the meeting on the 19th, that Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. I think you would find it interesting. She's trying to get people, again, like really what the Environmental Commission is doing, what the Green Dialogue group is doing, just get people thinking more about things that we can do to gradually move in a better direction in terms of our environment. And this is one little aspect of it, but I think she has a really good philosophy about it, and it'd be worth checking into. The only other thing I'm going to say, which is what I said this morning too, is if you haven't read Bill Gates' book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, I highly recommend it. I know he and his wife have been in the news a lot in the last day or two, but the book itself, he has the money, he has the connection with people that have the knowledge. He's brought a lot of various aspects of what is going on and what can and really needs to be going on to avoid a climate disaster. He brought them all into a very a well-presented, well-organized book that I just recommend. So I'll shut up now. That was all I had to say.
Oh, thank you, John. Does anybody else want to make any further parting comments? Okay. Leroy?
Just briefly, we should add the student update on for our committees if we have a student team. And I don't know if you guys have anything to report today about Earth Club or whatever, but it could just be part of our. You don't have to say anything, but if you've got something that you think the commission would be interested in or that you think we should be involved with, it's a great time to throw in your 2 cents. That's all.
I can't think of anything right now, but
Yeah, me neither.
In the future, we'll have you on the list. And as you can see from just going through what we just did, that sometimes the teams don't have much to report, but it's always kind of interesting for us to kind of try to keep track of what other folks are up to, and especially as it relates to us. And I don't think I officially welcomed Bernadette and Annika to the Environmental Commission. Welcome. We're super glad that you're joining us, and so we're looking forward to your participation. And I think Rose's suggestion about having a separate meeting to discuss, this student advisory committee and what it might do and how it might relate to the Earth Club and whatever, I think is a great idea. So I guess unless there's any further comment, okay, Kendra.
I just wanted to say earlier in the meeting, you mentioned about getting other communities involved. Oh my goodness, my cat's gonna jump up here. I'm so sorry. Getting other communities involved with Green Dialogue and stuff. And I was invited to speak at Rotary in Williamston, and I have a lot of speaking engagements that I'm already involved in. I don't know if anyone else would be interested in doing that talk, but I did talk to them a little bit about things. So if anyone's interested, please let me know. Thank you.
Well, I believe too, Williamston Township is in the process of forming an environmental committee, I believe, for the township. So that was shared with us a while back, which was good news. So the movement continues. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, Rose, a second. Tom, okay. All in favor of adjourning? Raise your hand, please. Okay. Hey, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming, and look forward to seeing some of you at the next Green Dialogue, and certainly all of you at the next Environmental Commission meeting. So take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, Leroy, sorry for that electronic noise. I didn't realize.